I want a girlfriend. And so if I get a girlfriend, right, and I pray really hard and I get a girlfriend, then God is real. And if I don't, then there is no God. I wanted to die. I was very, very tired. I'd been struggling for so long, just trying my hardest. Anything, if you had a new modality, if you had a new psychotherapy approach, if you had a new whatever, I'm there, I'm taking it because I am in so much pain. And I realized, wait a second, I'm looking for the perfect person. And I just feel, in that moment, honestly, I feel like I just had a picture of Jesus, just looking down on me. And it was in this moment that he said, okay, like you've obviously been in a ton of pain for a long time, like you've been pushing. I was a bit stunned that it was Jesus that's the perfect friend that I've been looking for. But okay, I mean, I guess that, that makes sense. He is, like what he has shown me is.
Cameron, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe where you were born, how you grew up?
Yeah, sure. I was born in Saskatchewan, so it's the next province to Alberta, to the east there. And born there in a small town, small town. I think it's about 300 people now, so it was a smaller town back then. But my parents, they got together, married at 18, so they had me at 20. So, and then they kind of, realized that they needed to, they were going to have children, and decided what the good next step was for them, and what if they, where they should be to start their family. So they decided to come out here to move to Edmonton as, farming wasn't as viable as it used to be anymore. It wasn't something you could necessarily make a go of and have it last for the next 30 years, or at least so my dad thought. And so they moved out here. My dad became an apprentice welder, and my mom stayed at home with us.
Wow. Okay. And so you've lived in Edmonton most of your life then, eh?
Most of my life. Grew up. Started here when we were younger. Moved around. There was an acreage out in Sherwood Park, and then kind of settled down in Beaumont area. So little town south of Edmonton.
Yeah.
But basically.
So
Edmonton area.
What was your life like growing up?
Yeah, I have three brothers and sisters, and
three brothers and three sisters.
No, together. Three siblings.
Okay,
three siblings.
3 siblings.
Yeah, 3 siblings. I'm the oldest. And when we were younger as well, I guess, we took in foster children. So we took foster kids in. Yeah. So it was always a very busy house. My parents homeschooled me until I was in grade 8. And so, very busy house, and lots and lots of kids. Yeah. And but we kept moved around a fair bit. I think it's tough to. I understand now a little bit more about why my parents probably moved. It's tough. It's tough for my parents. My mom is staying home. My dad's working, and that's tough in these days when you got 2 family households. But my parents always thought that it was most important that we homeschool kids and home cook food and eat that food every night. And,
sounds like a good upbringing.
Yeah.
How about the foster children? Were you good friends with them? Were they older or younger? Or?
No, they were all younger than I was. Yeah. Well, no, actually, that's not true. We had one kid that came in, one older person that came in. She was a mom, so I think she was 16. And she came in with her child. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that kid was older than me, but that was a little bit of a special circumstance. Everybody else is younger than me.
Right.
So
So you were quite young then at that time. Obviously, she was 16 at that time.
Yeah. I would have been 8, 9, 11, somewhere around there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you grow up in a Christian home then, or?
Yeah. I knew the name God. I knew the name God, and we did go to church, and
Yeah.
we did. But I think a lot of the lessons that get passed down from person to person within the families and stuff like that, that's where I've learned a lot from God, is not necessarily from His Word, but the lessons and the ways that people live that out in their lives. And I would say that maybe there's a lot to be improved upon in the way that we lived out God in our family. I know my parents, my grandparents, when I went to go visit them we went to go have a family reunion. And so it was their chance, their 50th wedding anniversary.
Right.
We're going to get up, and they're going to talk. We've all gathered here, and I remember them getting up and then kind of turning it into a sermon about mentioning hellfire and brimstone and burning in hell for eternity. And I thought, oh yeah, okay, so this is kind of what my parents were exposed to, and I was an adult by that time already. So it wasn't really. I wouldn't say it was loving. I wouldn't say it was kind, the way that I was raised in the church. I knew and saw kind and loving people, but I just never experienced that really for myself. I never experienced what some people would talk about, comfort or grace or ease. Those things they did not match up with my reality and how I thought I experienced God.
What verbs would you use or adjectives to describe your upbringing?
Yeah, when it comes to God, when it comes to my religion, I would say mostly absent, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think there was a lot of stuff that I remember, two sort of experiences. One is that I thought, well, this God, God, like, I don't know if he's real or not. I said, but you know what? I've never really tested him, right? Like, you really have to. How can he be real if I've never really asked him for anything and never laid something on the line for him? So I remember saying, okay, so I want a girlfriend, and so if I get a girlfriend, right, and I pray really hard and I get a girlfriend, then God is real. And if I don't, then there is no God. Which it's a little embarrassing and cute that I would think that that's the entirety. That's how big my world was at the time. But
right.
I did not get the girlfriend that I was hoping for, and that was a big, I think, kind of blow. As well, I tried to go. I was baptized when I was very young, and part of that was because I looked at it and I said, I don't believe, and everybody else is believing, right? Everybody else is understanding it and they're running with it, but I don't believe. And maybe what am I missing? What am I missing? Am I missing testing God? Maybe I'm missing baptism, right? So I tried that as well. Tried to go get baptized, and I went through the motions and did the baptism, and then I was waiting for the feeling and waiting for belief, and it just.
How old were you at that time?
I don't know. 10, 11.
Okay.
Yeah. So didn't work, and just sort of kept trying to figure out exactly what that all meant to me. But I know by the time I think it was 16.
Yeah.
That's when my parents said, we're not going to make you go to church anymore. You're free to make your own choice, and I basically stopped going at that point, and just lived my life the way I wanted it to.
Okay, now there's a big gap between that and where you are today.
Oh yeah.
So fill in the gap, if you would.
Yeah. Yeah, I think part of the when it comes to my journey and how I came back to God, or came to Him, came back to, however you want to. I think it's I don't think it can be really gone without saying that pointing out or sharing that when I was younger, and I can guess around about 8 o'clock. Sorry, not 8 o'clock. 8 years old.
Yeah.
We'll edit that out. When I was around 8 years old, is as best as I can figure. That's when I had a friend of mine, and he had a computer, and there was this high-speed internet that all the kids were using, and he showed me pornography on there. And that really started. It really immediately took its grip on me.
Got hooks. Okay.
And immediately, absolutely right. The first time. I mean, there was no ever stopping. Just completely consumed me. The hunt for it and thinking about it and looking for it. So it, that started when I was about 8. And as far as I can about figure, and it took up more and more of my day as I started going through adolescence, and definitely affected the way I interacted with people, and became a very damaging force in my life, and in my family.
How did it affect you interacting with people?
I just did not see people as human beings, as people worthy of respect, and it was, people became objects, people became something to be used, right? And I just had so much rage, I think, as well, that fed into, right? The rage. I was angry at others. I felt like I deserved, I deceived myself that I deserved more, that I was special, something like that. And that just taints really a lot of interactions that I'd been having with other people.
Right, I can see that. Yeah, I've heard reports and seen some videos and such on that, and it says that it causes you to look at people in a different way, which is exactly what you were saying. And I can testify in my own life that I've prayed and said, Lord, help me to look at these people as if they're children of yours, not through what I can get or through my own wants or desires and that, but as if they're your children, and that you loved them so much that you sent your son to be a sacrifice so that you could have a relationship with them. Help me to see them through those eyes. And so I can relate in that manner, because I really do think that it does change the way you, like you said, you interact and the way you look at people.
Yeah.
So where does that bring you to? Like, where does that take you?
Yeah. So, we're as we're talking about this, so I've throughout my adolescence, I'm struggling with pornography, and I'm not really getting what I think is a lot of help from God, right? And there's not really a lot of help from anybody else, to be honest. I've been homeschooled, and eventually I did end up going into the public school system, but just didn't really have social skills, at least, and I not as much social skills, it's just the ability to reach out. I just didn't know what to do and how to reach out and how to tell somebody about what was going on. So for the most part, remained something that I tried to deal with as much on my own. It would kind of come out and affect my life, but become a parent, and then we just kind of hoped it would kind of, we wouldn't talk about it to some extent. But so I moved out at the age of 18, and just decided maybe going out on my own is what I need. But without that, what I see now, without the guidance of God, things just, while it seemed like I might have been making a good choice at the time, really it's a choice that's not going to go so well for me years or decades from now. I struggled just with what people call mental health right? I struggled with depression and anxiety and just generally feeling connected to other people or the world. As I moved through my 20s, I had a couple relationships with women. I had girlfriends. Got engaged a couple times. I'd always wanted a family. I'd always wanted, a lifelong marriage. To some extent, I thought, well, all these problems, I mean, they'll be gone once I just need this kind of relationship, and then those things will disappear. But unfortunately, the more that I search for what would really make me happy in life, a marriage and a family, the more I realize these problems of mine they're following me, and they're getting worse, and I'm hurting people in the process.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's got to be an aha moment, if you don't mind, or an awakening for you and such.
It's difficult. I mean, if I wasn't as much awakened as I was despondent, right? That these are going to continue to come at me. They're not going to leave, no matter who I marry or what happens.
Right.
These things they're not going anywhere, and they're going to continue to grow, and this problem is going to continue to get worse.
So what do you do about that?
Yeah. Well, I tried a number of things. Sometimes it was avoiding. Sometimes it was diving head into. It did end up leading me back into, hard drug use. I dabbled a bit when I say back into, I dabbled a bit when I was 18, and I knew right away, like, these aren't good for me. I really shouldn't be, doing any of this, and I kind of left it there when I was 18. Now, late 20s, I'm back at something I knew a long time ago I should not be touching. I'm doing drugs again, and it really kind of accelerated that process. As well, there's spiritual practices that I'm, taking part in. Trying to find the answer, really, is what I'm trying to do.
What do you mean spiritual practices?
Well, spiritual communities of people who, we're all trying to find, example might be yoga, for example, right? Trying to find a spiritual meaning in yoga, and what does yoga teach me? But, I knew that there was something bigger, something that I hadn't connected with. I knew that there was, that God had, and that whole way of growing up had really, it was damaging, and it wasn't really probably what everybody else, wasn't loving, that's for sure. And probably most people haven't gone through that, so maybe it's not all bad, but I needed to connect with some sort of spirituality myself. So I tried to do that through, is it yoga, or is it, other spiritual, energetic communities, right, where they talk about energy. And I was always looking for that something bigger, something that would help me out, right? Something to provide some relief. And but I never could find it, right? I'd end up, I'd go into a community like yoga, and I'd find out, it's about it, that the universe is there for you, for example. That's about all that they have to say.
So you found it empty?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. Empty. Yeah, it was just, there was no substance to it. And I kept, that's it? That's all you have? Oh, wow. Okay, maybe something else, right? Or I'd find a group, and it would be kind of centered around somebody, and then I'd go to try to find dig into them, and then I'd find out, they're really quite, again, empty. There's really nothing much to them. They aren't backed by anything. It's a huge ego is all I found, right? Oh, okay, well. So I've got, I've been, my drug use and stuff was increasing. It was getting to the point where I didn't quite know where I was in life. I never thought, I was in a point where I was like, I never thought that I would be here. I never thought that I would be, I never wanted to be here. Like, I know that the younger version of myself is really doesn't know what to think about where we're at here, but trying desperately just to get some relief and some help from the pain that is becoming more and more ever present in my life. Eventually, I started dabbling into the deaf communities. So just people who, the right to die kind of communities. They had started pulling some of my attention.
Really?
And just because I just realized I wanted to die. I wanted to die. I was very, very tired. I'd been struggling for so long, just trying my hardest. Anything, if you had a new modality, if you had a new psychotherapy approach, if you had a new whatever, I'm there, I'm taking it because I am in so much pain. And I'm trying everything I can to find some relief, to feel better. And I'm trusting, that there is something out there. So many people are saying, just hang on, just hang on. But I couldn't. And I started saying, well, it's easy to say hang on when you're not in pain, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
I started going down that road, the right to die groups, and that kind of came in with MAID, right?
What do you mean came in with MAID?
Well, the legislation that they had done with MAID, they had updated the legislation to include.
Enlighten me, because
MAID is medical assistance in death.
Okay.
Yeah. And so they had originally, you had to be a terminal page, you had to be terminal with no hope of ever getting better. And you had to be, there was some very stringent sort of things, some guidelines, and you couldn't, it wasn't applicable to people with mental health issues. So at some point they had kind of repealed this, and they had started to work with saying, hey, if you're mentally ill and you can't get better at all, right? Treatment resistant, and you're in incredible suffering, we think that you should let us die. So that was these groups here. So I had gotten involved with that and starting to take a look at those groups and think, well, okay, this is my chance, right? So, to not just leave everybody alone, right? Not just disappear, but also not have to be here for very long. So,
Sorry, this is all strange to me, because I can't relate to that, even in my deepest, no, I guess I can if I think about it. If I really look at it, I remember a couple of times in my life where I was at low points in that, and those thoughts had come through my mind. But other than that, no. But to hear you speak like that, it's gotta resonate with somebody, And so you're not there anymore, obviously, or
no, I'm not.
So what got you from that to what we've seen you today? Look at that, even the smile there.
Can I ask a question? My question is, during that downtime, during that time you were suffering alone and not find a meaning in your life, did you ever have relationship or communication with your parent or family member?
Yeah. I was keeping in contact with my family. For a couple of years there, I had been going every Sunday to see them for supper, Sunday supper. But after a while, I stopped going, and I decided, it was maybe better for me to stop talking to my parents
Okay.
and all my family
Really?
all together. Yeah.
Okay, and when you were seeing them, did you talk about your problem, or it was just a visit?
Yeah. Well, they knew that there was a lot that I had to struggle
Okay,
through.
okay.
Yeah. I tried to talk with them. I don't know how reasonable I was being. I don't know if I was really had been able to take responsibility for my part in these things, but I remember feeling like it was all very unfair. Yeah. So not sure what that's worth, but
Well, so you're not there anymore.
No,
You're
yeah.
you're somewhere else now. I could
Yeah.
see it in your eye a minute ago. Tell us, how is it that you ended up coming back to the Lord?
yeah. So I had found the death communities that I had talked about. I had a friend down in Calgary. We had never really been. We'd always been a city apart.
Yeah.
And so I had decided at the time that there was a teacher down there who would teach me about this death stuff, and then I could get involved. And so I decided it was time. I was going to commit my life fully to this. I was going to go down to Calgary. I was going to take courses, and then I was going to quit my job and start this process.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I went down to Calgary, and I remember driving on the way down to Calgary just going, man, I'm so tired. But also I just need, if I could just get like 1 year on top of a mountain just on my own. Like if I just need like away from everybody, if I could just get everybody to leave me alone for 1 year and just like, I could maybe figure out what's going on. But I mean,
So who are you saying this to, yourself or to God or
yeah,
to?
God hears all. Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just sitting. I remember just sitting here in my vehicle, driving down to Calgary with all my stuff. All my stuff is in. I have all my stuff, and I'm moving down to Calgary. And I was just like, man, I could really use a year alone, right? Is what I said. A year on top of a mountain, right? But that'll never. What are you gonna do? You got bills to pay.
Yeah.
So. But that was probably March 6th of 2020.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and
Right
so,
during the very start
COVID.
of
yeah.
COVID.
So I was moving down.
What a great time to move to the top of a mountain.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I moved down to Calgary and stayed in my apartment, and I realized, okay, hold on a second. This is actually my chance. This is my chance. If I needed a mountain, this is the second best thing, and I get to keep working. Bills do not go unpaid. So I use that as the chance that I just took that as the chance. Once I realized things weren't going to really open up anytime soon,
Yeah.
then I decided, you know what, I'm going to just do what everybody else seems to be doing, or at the very least, just use COVID as an excuse and just say, I'm really sorry, this whole virus thing. But meanwhile, what I was doing was I had cut myself sort of off from, I was able to control all the media coming in and out of my home, and control who I interacted with and how I interacted with them, and if I was able to just create the situation that I needed, especially through the work with a therapist, to start getting a handle on my pornography usage.
So I was going to ask, were you still doing drugs at this time and heavy into pornography at this time?
Yeah. Well, I had been very.
So you knew at this time. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you knew at this time that this was an issue in your life, and so obviously you were seeking therapy at this time.
Yeah. I'd been seeking therapy throughout most of my adulthood, to varying levels of success. For the most part, it's sort of narrowed down. Like I had understood and recognized that I needed to stop some of these things. I just didn't know how, and I didn't know how I was going to do that, right? Because when my life is based in sexual immorality, based in drug use, based in sin, essentially. It's a lot. It's a lot to kind of come out of that. And any withdrawing that I had tried to do is always met with resistance, right?
Right.
And so there's people working, trying to get me to come back, trying to get me to join again. And when I don't really have anybody else, I knew that I was in a tough position, right? I knew that good people, and because I saw that good people just didn't really want to spend time with me. And I started noticing that I'm not somebody that I would hang out with, that I would, when I was younger, I wouldn't hang out with somebody like me. Like, that was very, very shocking. So I was gifted with a very good therapist that, during this COVID time, I said, okay, it's time to put an end to this pornography. I've always been able to get like most of the way there, but then it rears its ugly head and it, eventually becomes a problem again, big problem again. So I said, I think it's the source of a lot of my problems. I said, I think it's also very difficult. So I said, right now to quit. I said, right now I've got my little shelter in the COVID world. I've got the perfect excuse to not do anything that isn't going to support this goal. So we kind of dove into that, and as I got clean, we call it. As I cleaned up, I started to realize that it had been causing a lot of problems for me in my life. That there was a lot of anger, a lot of rage underneath that. I know throughout my adult life, the therapist would always, my therapist and I would always sit there and would be like, we talked about a lot of things like that alone would, make somebody very angry, but we're not seeing any of that anger in my life. We don't know where it could be. And we'd always be wondering, where's all this anger? It's got to be somewhere. Where's all this anger? And it was when I went to go quit pornography that all that anger, it was all underneath that.
Really?
Yeah, in my life. So very powerful stuff, and I struggled. For probably about a year, just struggling with it. And eventually, though, kind of the break came when I realized that the 12-step groups. Do you guys know the 12-step groups? Yeah. No. If you have an addiction or if you have something that you're trying to quit, the 12-step groups, it's 12 steps how to essentially live a spiritual life in order to get over this addiction that you have. So the step one of the steps is to admit that you have a problem. Right? To admit that there is a problem, that something has gone wrong. And to, step two is believe that God can restore me to sanity, right? So step two had always been the problem that I'd have. Now I'd been to groups before. I knew that pornography was an issue even when I was mid-20s, right? I knew it was a problem. I tried to quit. I had joined groups to do it, but I always knew that I was missing that step two, believing that God could restore me to sanity, right? So it's this time around, and I'm probably, I think I was 35, so 2020, I don't know, do some math, I guess, but at some point, but 32, I guess. But all of a sudden, finally, it clicks, this piece about God restoring me to sanity. It clicks that, yeah, you know what, the way I've been acting is absolutely insane. Like, it goes against human nature, right? It goes against this goodness that I believe in, right? And I start, meditating and being urged by this counselor, a really great counselor. She said, what is your spiritual belief? You have to have that. She says, what is your spiritual belief? You're going to need the spiritual belief in order to truly get over this thing. If you're going to really beat pornography, you have to know what your spiritual belief is, because you're going to need to rely on that thing, whatever it is. She said it can be anything you want. but you're going to need to rely on it. So you got to dig deep on that. And I remember one day just sitting there thinking, you know what, if I just need a friend. I mean, that's what I need. That's my spiritual beliefs, is friends and other people. And what I need is somebody who will be there like at all times, right?
Mm-hmm.
And who will listen without saying something stupid, right? And who will understand, who's not going to judge me, and who will also talk when I need them to talk. They're going to need to talk. And I just sat there and I started making up this big list of what I would need from this friend. And all of a sudden I realized it was just like this moment, and I realized, wait a second, I'm looking for the perfect person. And I just feel, in that moment, honestly, I feel like I just had a picture of Jesus just looking down on me. And it was in this moment that he said, okay, like, you've obviously been in a ton of pain for a long time. Like, you've been pushing hard, trying to figure this out. And I'm now here, and I have prepared you with everything that you've been. I've been with you the whole time. I've been with you. The home that I put you in was the home that I knew you were supposed to be in. And the first girlfriend that I introduced, that you had, her family was Jewish, right? They that was not an accident. And the woman at your work that works in your office as your office manager, she was a strong Christian and really showed me things. He says that was no mistake either. This whole time, there's been somebody in your life who has been there making sure that you're okay. And I've been waiting for you to get to this moment right here, where you know what waits back in that old path. You know that you came here to die, and you know that this is not going to last forever. This COVID thing, it's not going to last for forever. So you have a choice to make. And I know that you can't do it on your own. And I know that, that you need somebody. And so it's, I just felt like he said it was entirely up to you. It's entirely up to you. But I think you know what you need to do. And at that moment I said, okay. I said, I'm not gonna beat around the bush. I'm not here to, I'm not here to lie to myself, right? I'm here to get better. I said, this is profound. This is what I need. I see it now, and I'm in, right? So I sat down right then and there and prayed and said, God, I never thought I'd be talking to you again, but...
Where were you at this time?
I'm just in my apartment in Calgary.
Calgary.
Yeah, just in Calgary.
So you had a get real moment, and you realized that the only one who's not going to say something stupid to you, and that's going to listen, and then who's going to speak to you when you need to be spoken to, is Jesus.
Yeah, I realized, like, I'd been cluing in, thinking about it in human terms, but cluing into the fact that what I need is God. That there's this huge God-shaped hole, as it were, in me at all times, and that I need to start filling it with God, and you start allowing God to take his rightful place in my life.
So, was that an intellectual realization, or an emotional or spiritual realization, or was it all of those kind of all came to a culmination?
I mean, yeah, I feel like there was a vision there, right, or at least a strong impression of what Jesus was saying to me. It was emotional. It was difficult. It was difficult to pray again. It was difficult to grapple with this moment. There was some action there. I mean, I prayed. I literally prayed. I folded my hands and I prayed. And so it was a pretty profound experience. And it was one that, when that was done, I said, okay, so from this moment on, my life is his. I can only claim that I've done it up until the point that I'm the only one that's done it. But I prayed, and if he's going to provide me grace, then it's not me anymore from here on. It's not just me from here on out. And I knew that I needed to, I said, okay, well, I'll need to find out what he has to say to me. Because if he's the one, like, I was surprised that it was Jesus, right? Jesus in this moment, I'm like, what? I thought it was going to be some great person, or,
Yeah.
Jesus is, okay, that's not what I expected. And so I was a bit stunned, to be honest.
Wow.
I was a bit stunned that it was Jesus that's the perfect friend that I've been looking for. But okay, I mean, I guess that, that makes sense. He is, like what he has shown me is, oh yeah, okay, that's compelling. So I started going to church, started reading the Bible, and used that time to just get a little bit more familiar with him. And since that moment, not had a problem with, like, not pornography. Pornography has not had as strong a grip on my life as it ever. Not even close to what it is. I do still, still a challenge.
How did you find the church to go?
Oh, well, when I was in Calgary, I looked up the biggest church because I can't be wrong. I figured if they're the biggest, and I didn't know.
How do you look up the biggest church? Google?
Well, yeah,
Building?
The biggest church and largest membership or something like that. It was, I don't know, some, 100,000 or so, I don't know, maybe, some amount of members. And I just said, okay, there we go. They got 5 buildings or whatever, okay, I'll go to there. So, yeah.
How'd that work out for you?
Well, you know what? It got me started.
Yeah.
Got me started. I knew. I said, you know what? In that moment again, where I'm looking at, okay, hold on, it's Jesus. I'm kind of having this moment like, it's Jesus. Wait a second. I'm like, then what? Part of my thought process is, what went wrong then? Like, how is it that it's Jesus here? I'm here in this moment, and Jesus is right there, and he's offering, me a way out. But I haven't. I mean, I grew up kind of like around the church. And that's when I realized, I said, oh, you know what? I think the church has some traps in it. I think the people around me there are some traps that are easy to fall into. I'm going to need to know how to navigate these traps. An example, and I see that now, right? An example is to hang out with people who are very angry, for example. If I hang out with people who are very angry and using the Bible as a way to justify their own actions, that's a trap. That's a trap right there. And there's a chance I would, lose him in that, to allow myself to get sucked into that. So, I looked back on it and said, okay, hold on, there's going to be some things that I need to reconcile with and things that I need to avoid. And I don't know what they are yet. So I picked the biggest church, and I attended some Bible studies, and it was all very, it was good. I mean, it was just sensible stuff, it seemed like. So that's why I picked the biggest church.
Now, you're no longer in Calgary.
Yeah.
You're now back up here in Edmonton.
Yeah,
How long have you been back in Edmonton?
Yeah, I've been back here for, shortly after I got clean and sober, I met somebody, and I just felt called. I felt God was telling me that I could serve him through my relationship with that person. And so, I had a very strong sense from him that I was going to be able to atone to some extent because the person I was dating struggled with some of the things that I had. They were on the receiving end, I guess. As a woman, they had been victim to a lot of the attitudes and things that I had carried around, and a lot of the things that I had perpetrated in the world. She was on the receiving end of that and was keenly aware of that. And so when we met, I thought, this is just the worst. I like her, but this is like the worst pairing I've ever seen. How can somebody like me possibly make somebody like her happy, right? Like, she hates people like me. Somehow that wasn't the case, and it seemed to me that God was saying that he would help me atone, and we would find some, not only atone, but just help heal that for both of us, that I could help heal that. So I quickly moved back up to Edmonton, and we moved in together just to give it a good, a good chance. And but throughout that, I came to rely more heavily on myself, and I stopped relying on God as I walked in this relationship. As you can imagine, the relationship suffered, and by the time that I realized that, oh, hold on, I haven't been walking with God, it had gotten bad, and my relationship was absolutely suffering. My own walk was almost non-existent. I wasn't going to church. I wasn't reading the Bible. I wasn't praying. So I just decided that I needed to recommit and to do whatever it took. I said that my primary relationship, the relationship that I'm in, is now with God, and that it just can't be. He's the one I have to be most committed to.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That reminds me of when I promised to make you second in my life.
Never easy. I don't think she liked hearing that, but I do know that's the truth.
It is, and she did like hearing it, because she knew if I put God first, that would elevate her no matter what. So, so, wow.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we were present at your baptism.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I have to say, I was excited to see it. I jumped right up and started filming it, which I think we'll share. So, as long as that's fine with you. And you actually shared part of your testimony with me just before you got baptized, which was exciting. And we'd even talked about you coming on camera and talking at that time. So now you've been baptized again, you're doing your best to walk with the Lord, and you've made Him as your primary relationship in your life. Well, those are some pretty big steps. I want to say, where do you go from here? But those are huge steps in themselves, aren't they? So I think if you just, I'm not giving advice here, but I think if you just carried on that road, where it takes you is to a better life. That's what I think. Yeah. So you had mentioned a little while earlier about looking for the perfect person and finding Jesus.
Yeah.
But in finding Jesus, have you found people as well that will walk alongside of you, and have you found new relationships as He brought you into any new relationships? And that I know you and I have struck up a friendship, and that. What about others?
Yeah, I've met some new people, definitely through the church. But I think more than anything, I have found some sort of peace.
Yeah.
A sort of peace that really means that I don't have to strive as much.
Mm-hmm.
Friendships are nice, and I enjoy our friendship growth, not to put anything against it, but there is something really wonderful about being able to just go home at the end of the day and just be with God, and not feel so lonely that I'm out just searching for who to spend time with, right? That's led me down some paths. So right now, I've met a lot of people, but what I think the biggest treasure is being able to spend as much time as I do now alone, and just completely happy, like just happy, and it just feels like tomorrow I'm going to be okay, and next week I'm going to be okay. Like, I can really spend alone. I can really be alone with God. I could be alone with God for a week or a month, and like I'm probably going to be okay. Normally there were points in my life where if that much time alone, I knew that I was going to end up in trouble, right? Because I would be craving and striving so hard that it would have caused problems for me. I just love being able to go home now, and I just sit there, and I can do something, or I can do nothing, or I can do work, or I can do something, and I'm just kind of I'm at peace. I'm at peace, and if I need him, he's right there. It's wild.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I totally agree. When you're never really alone when you have Jesus in your life, and the fact that instead of getting into your own brain and thinking your own things, all of a sudden you have somebody that you can go to and share things with. And it's very interesting to me how God will talk back to you. And I would encourage people to read their Bible, because it's the Word of God. And what will happen is, as you read your Bible and you start laying out things to the Lord, He'll bring back verses to you, and that's like hearing directly from Him. And so I've experienced that myself. So thank you.
I have a question as a mom, as a parent, because listening to your story, I hear that addiction started when you were 8 years old. That is elementary school. And you're not there anymore. You pass, and God transformed you. Did you ever think one day to be someone who can talk to children who go through those kind of problems?
Yeah.
Did you ever think?
Yeah, I do think that.
Yeah, one day.
My story, I stopped talking to my parents, but I talk to them now.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't too long ago that I talked to my brother.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've found and come to understand, and I thought that the church was a place where everybody was happy, right? But what I'm learning is that there's actually a lot of people in the church now who have children who are just gone, and they don't hear from them, and they don't talk to them, or at least they don't have that closeness. For me to have come back not only to my family, but then to Christ as well, is a powerful story. And what I tell, I've heard a number of people who, my aunts specifically, they will ask me, well, what am I supposed to do? How do I prevent this? Like you're talking about, children leaving. How do I prevent this? What could I have done? What can I do? My message is that your children. For me, when I was in that moment with Jesus, and I'm there, and I'm like, oh, it's you here at the end of this road. How are you here at the end of this road? It didn't matter what my parents did wrong. It mattered what my parents had just simply taught me, and the message is very simple. God saves, Jesus saves. It is through His, He's always going to be there for you. He is all powerful. He has created you. Very, very simple. How my parents made it better or worse, that was not, in that moment, that did not matter. So when it comes to kids, and parents and how we get out there, I do feel strongly that there are kids, I know that there are people out there in pain. And I know that it takes people who have been through, intense situations, like in order to sometimes be able to recognize that, or to be a safe space, somebody that a child could say and maybe share with about something that they're going through. Right? Kids, I know that I tested my parents to see if they were ready to hear some of the things that were going on in my life, and I just didn't feel like they were. And
right.
So I want to be, I thought it would be nice, not just, it would be nice. I feel it's important to be out there and to be talking to families, so that if there is that kid who's looking and out there testing people to figure out who the right person is to share with, maybe for one person, at least, that could be me.
How can we be we have children, how can we be open to hearing from them? Like, what were you looking for when you were testing them, so that we can?
Yeah. I think first off all, like, it was a willingness to hear without taking it personally. Like my mom, I know she, no offense to her, she's a great woman. I love my mom, I honor her. And she wants to be a mom, a good mom, very, very, very much. And sometimes to hear that she has failed, it can send her into a bit of a tailspin. She has some struggle with that. And that's the last thing that I need. If I'm going to have told my mom something that's happening, so the last thing I need is to hear that, is to have her reaction to that kind of overtake what's going on right now.
Right.
There was some complicating factors. I know I had, the pornography that I was ingesting and opened me up to abuse by an older boy in my family, and that had really complicated a lot of things. I felt guilt and shame around that. When I went to think about talking to my dad, it's very difficult to imagine talking to him, because I thought, well, what if he thinks that I'm gay? What if I am gay? How do I talk to my dad, right? Now, I didn't realize that, being abused by a boy is not the same as being gay, but I didn't know that. And it was all very confusing. And I wasn't sure if I was going to be yelled at. Right? I wasn't sure if what I was doing was against the rules. I thought maybe it was. It's all very, very much. So really, it's about, are my parents going to be mad at me? Are my parents going to be so consumed by their own reactions that they don't hear me? Right? Are they able to stand in what's going on here and provide a reasoned, valid, well thought out view on what's going on? So, and it's not easy, right? It's not easy, but, I think that's what I was looking for when I was testing my parents. Are they going to be able to stay level for both me and them, and really make make things better?
Right.
Because I'd seen them a lot of times just end up making things worse.
Wow.
Yeah, life is a beautiful gift from God, and looking your relationship with God today, it's beautiful to hear that, and I hope you're gonna have an opportunity to use the life God gave you to be the person He wants you to be for others, because you have experience. You've been somewhere, it's wrong, how it consumes you, how it destroys you, but God came to lift you up. And there is 1,000 kids out there you can lift up to. And I'm so happy. When you start your story, I never heard a story like that, like from someone I know. But the beauty things is God is there. Jesus is there. He saved you. And we look the future with light. And thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah. Thank you, Kim.
And do you
Appreciate
have any Bible scripture you would like to share?
Yeah, I do.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't remember is it maybe Matthew 5 or 7? I don't know.
Yeah.
The verse is, look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Do not worry about tomorrow. So to me that, when I think of storing away in barns, I think of, just, it makes me think of, I can just let today be. And I don't even have to, it's like save up for retirement. That's always been one that gets me. I don't even have to save up for retirement, because the birds don't store away in barns. I'm figuring it all out, but he is saying, you do not have to worry about tomorrow. Don't worry about retirement, Cameron. Today something else is going on. So I just feel called to that, and it just brings me great, peace. Great peace when I think of that one.
We will be praying for you because I know when Jesus saved you, Satan is not happy
No.
because he thought he's yours. And it's a process, our journey with God. So he will be tempted you. So our prayer, we know, is stronger than his evil mind, and we're gonna pray that you win, and they win, they forever win.
Amen. I'd really like to pray again.
Yeah.
And if you wouldn't mind, hands.
Lord God, how powerful you are to have brought us here today. Thank you for the opportunity that we have here to witness